Hello everyone. My name is Zinina, and today I present to you my research. I would like to start by saying a few words about our laboratory at the Kotov Institute in Moscow. Uh, we are developing an anthropomorphic robot F2 for human-machine interaction experiments. The kinematic scheme of the robot allows reproducing human emotional movements, and the robot has two moving hands and a head with a monitor for face projection. It is designed as a simple and reproducible research and educational platform. Let's move directly to the topic of my presentation. Today, social robots find application in various situations. We find it interesting that social robots are widely used in education, in particular in learning a foreign language. Even more than that, today we can say that there is a new and rapidly developing field in science, robot-assisted language learning, or REL. It is already known. You can see it in the picture. The REL technology has shown positive treatment effects on language learning when compared to non-REL conditions. It also should be noted that this area is presented predominantly by foreign research, and Russian researchers haven't conducted such experiments. So we decided to do it, and we conduct an experiment in which the robot acted as an assistant in learning the vocabulary of a foreign language. We assume that personal interaction between a human and a robot could facilitate the students' engagement and satisfaction with the learning processes. The experiment was conducted at the Moscow State Linguistic University, and subjects were students, future foreign language teachers, and they didn't know Latin. In the slide shows a schematic illustration of the experiment with the robot. And there you can see two stages, word presentation and word training. At the beginning of the experiment, the subjects were presented with the studied words. They saw the words and its translation on the monitor. And heard it read in the Latin language. In addition, a keywords, a special hints, was presented on the person by the robot. After that, the subject moved on to the training stage, where the robot presented the words. If the person didn't remember the words, the robot gave them a hint, and if the subjects didn't answer again, the robot started recording the pronunciation of the word by the Latin speaker. All the hints, keywords, and Latin reading were presented in fixed 5-second intervals, and were presented randomly, but each word was presented twice. Subjects' correct answers were controlled by experimenter. To prove the correct answers, we use the Wizard of Oz paradigm. We use within subjects experimental design. Each participant was practicing Latin words with the robot and with the computer. We used to, after learning the words, subjects were invited to the next room, where the experimental checked the words learning in both experimental conditions. And there you can see a more detailed presentation of the second stage, word training with the robot. And I'll show a brief version of communication.
Сейчас мы познакомимся с латинскими словами.
Кунабула.
Как парабола.
Арборис.
Как барбарис. Хорошо. Теперь пробуй назвать латинские слова, а я буду тебе помогать. Дерево. Как барбарис.
Арборис.
Ага. Колыбель. Как парабола.
slide presents a scheme of the second stage of the experiment, words training with the computer. You can see short version.
Kunabuла. Arboris.
I guess it's okay. So for the experiment, we use keywords as a hints. We chose 26 Latin words with low frequency in Russian, and we used phonetic hints suggested by 32 native Russian speakers. Suggested hints were semantically unrelated to the Latin words. And the words were randomly divided into two groups for each of the experimental condition. And in the table, you can see examples of Latin words, their translation, and keywords. So let's move on to the results. According to the results, we can see that people learn words, and the number of wrong answers decreases, and the number of correct answers increases. After the experiment, during a free recall test, subjects correctly recalled on average 6 out of 26 words from both experimental conditions. During the second stage, when the experimental called the native words and asked to remember the Latin words, subjects additionally recall on average 9 words. So we can conclude that efficiency of learning with robots doesn't differ from the standard learning method via computer. However, it was important for us to evaluate the attractiveness of the new methods of word learning compared to a well-known way. And according to the results, 25 people, about 60% of entire sample, indicate that they preferred learning words with the robot. 10 people chose the computer, and 7 people evaluated the two methods equally. After the experiment, the subjects filled out a questionnaire in which they evaluated their impression of foreign language learning. For this purpose, we used semantic differentiation scale. And according to the scales, the participants describe the robot compared to the computer as rather friendly, cheerful, emotional, responsive, and attractive. And the robot in the respondent's perception is rather apathetic and quick. We also evaluated user satisfaction from the interaction with the robot. For this purpose, we use the modified satisfaction questionnaire. And according to the results, we found that such factors as emotional attractiveness and usefulness of the robots make a significant contribution to the preference for one or another way of interaction. In post-experimental questionnaire, we asked respondents the following questions. Can personal communication with a robot be effective for learning a foreign language? And 37 subjects said yes. The subjects tend to positively perceive the robot as a learning assistant. And here we can distinguish 3 different groups of subjects depending on the role of the robot in the educational situation. First, there are subjects who confidently perceive the robot as a teacher. And secondly, the subjects may focus on the robot's creation of a more comfortable environment for learning, supporting a pleasant and friendly atmosphere. And thirdly, there are subjects for whom the support of the robots is significant, and they also not increased motivation to learn the language with interaction with the robot. Despite positive responses, there was a group of subjects that liked this interaction less and preferred the computer. Such subjects were divided into subgroups too. First, some subjects noted that the methods of hinting words through a keyword didn't suit them. These subjects, throughout their association to the Latin words, and said that it was easier to ignore the computer text hints than robots' voice hints. Secondly, some subjects found it difficult to concentrate on learning words because of the disruption of the habitual way of learning a new language. Analyzing the video, we find that subjects show a rich emotional expression when interacting with the robot. They ask questions, ask for a hint, say that they do not know the correct answers, and etc. And I'll show you two examples with strong expressions from the subjects. In this video, the subject shows expression when she answers incorrectly. You can see.
Парус. Как в юности.
It was hint.
Не вспоминается.
I don't remember.
Грусть. Как клавиатура.
Клавус.
Да.
In this example, we see smiles when the answer was correct.
Как клавиатура.
Клавус.
Yes.
Ваш-
Okay, we found that the robot elicits more smiles than the computer, and subjects on average show 13 smiles, and when interacting words with the computer, only 5 smiles. But more interesting and significant is the difference in the number of smiles if we consider them in relation to the respondent's preferences. Using factor analysis, we found that the group that prefers the robot is significantly more frequently expressing smiling when interacting with the robot. However, the group that prefers the computer doesn't differ in the number of smiles when interacting with the robot and with the computer. Trying to make sense our results, we suppose that the perception of the robot as an educational tool may be connected with a general perception of robots. And to analyze differences in robot perception, we conducted a cluster analysis based on the Goodspeed scales data. And we defined 2 groups. You can see in the pictures, participants in the first group evaluated the robot on the majority of scales higher. And the scales corresponding to anthropomorphism and animosity. We can see that these participants attributed to the robot the characteristics of an animated living organism. And we also find that respondents in the first group generally perceive the robot more positively according to the semantic differential scales. Also, the group differ significantly in their evaluation of robots' usefulness. And groups also differ from each other on the control of emotion scales of emotional intelligence tests. And so, according to the results, we can define 2 groups of people according to their perception of robots. The first group is characterized by the perception of the robot as a living being, and they highly appreciate the prospects of using robots for learning a foreign language. The second group is a bit skeptical about robots' application in education. But in general, we can conclude that the robot within the suggested procedure has a good perspective to be used as an assistant in learning a foreign language for Russian students. The robot gave a positive impression and increases motivation and a desire to use this method of learning in the future. Students highly evaluate the applicability of the robot in this task. And thank you for your attention. This is our lab and our website where you can read more about our work and about FT Robot. And this is my email, and you can text me anything. Thank you.